Hello. All right, so we are going to talk about sleep and specifically sleep in the way that how we sleep affects the night or is affected by the night before. So I'm just going to jabber for a little bit until people start to get on, and then we will get into the details. So we've got a few programs coming up a few more workshops coming up over the next few months. I have a list of them, of course. So we're talking about the 4 pillars of harmony and wellness. So harmony and wellness, meaning sleep, nutrition, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so welcome. We are continuing our education classes on the 4 pillars of health and harmony and wellness. And the 4 pillars are nutrition, sleep, stress management or energy management, and lifestyle. So we'll be talking about each part of it each week, a little bit different topic. You can check that out on my website, whenshifthappens.org. And then there'll be the promotions will be on the other social media platforms. So you're more than willing to check them out. So we're going to get started. And today I'm going to talk about sleep and how it starts the night before. So I will flip this. And we'll go back to the clock that we started with in the first session. So you have an opportunity to be able to see these sessions again. They will be posted on all my social media. Whenshifthappens.org is my website, which has all the information on it. And then the other education courses will be on YouTube. So When Shift Happens YouTube channel, which is linked from my website, whenshifthappens.org. So you have plenty of opportunities to be able to catch up if you missed the first few sessions. So this one is about sleep, and we're going to talk about a little bit about sleep hygiene. We're going to talk about when to eat, because that can affect your sleep, and then some practices in the evening to be able to wind down and go to sleep. So one of the things you have to consider is that sleep is the most important thing. So I start with lifestyle and go to nutrition because often people are very interested in nutrition. But nutrition is a little more complicated in Ayurveda in a different way than what it is in Western medicine. Western medicine is like the do's and don'ts. Ayurveda follows seasons and respects the seasons and the time of year, along with our personal constitutions, which we'll be studying in the next few weeks. So last week we talked about nutrition, but more from the point of our senses and how our senses relate. This week we're talking about sleep and how sleep is affected, how our day is affected by the night before. So not just the sleep that we get, but how we prepare for the sleep the night before. So if we have habits that are not all that great, where we go to bed really, really late and we push our schedule, or we're working all the way up until we're going to bed, or watching TV all the way up until we're going to bed, it definitely is going to affect our sleep. And some of us can say, oh, but I need that to be able to go to sleep. There's other ways. There's other things you can do before you go to bed other than watching TV. There's other activities. There's other things you can do to help wind your body down and connect with nature. So in Ayurveda, we're big on talking about how our connection with nature is so important. So the day-night cycle is a huge thing. So being able to connect with nature, to be able to connect with the light of day, to be able to wake up in the morning, and using the darkness, or going into the darkness, to be able to go to sleep. I'm sure some of us in the northern climates have noticed the big change with our days getting so much shorter already. So we're November and it's dark out already, and it's 6:00 p.m. Central Standard Time right now, and it's getting dark. So I always laugh because I watch my chickens, and my chickens are on a very strict routine. Like they have their thing that they do, and they're first thing up in the morning when the sun's up, and they're the last ones to just linger until that last bit of light, and then they're done, because they're paralyzed. They're completely paralyzed by darkness. I don't know of any other animal that's so paralyzed by darkness as chickens are. probably other birds are the same way, but definitely chickens. So as we get into this, we're going to look at this clock that's behind me. So if you don't have the clock written down, it's noon at the top, midnight at the bottom, 6s across the center, and then 2s and 10s. So 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., 6 a.m., and then 10 a.m. and noon. So we're going to use this clock throughout the next few weeks. We didn't use it as much last week because it was more based on the senses and how our senses and digestion of our senses plays a part in our health and wellness. This one, we're going to go into how our night starts before. So let's start with about 6 p.m. at night. So 6 p.m. or earlier, we should be eating our last meal. And it should be a smaller meal. So the meal at night is called supper. So that's more traditional. In smaller communities, probably still call it supper. In the city, we tend to call it dinner, which is ironic because dinner actually means a bigger meal, it means something of substance. And we switched that because of the Industrial Revolution, when we started eating a sack lunch at noon, when people would go to work at noon and have a sack lunch at noon and then come home and eat as a family and eat that bigger meal at night. And I'm from a farming community, and we actually eat our smaller meal in the evening. So usually it's soup or something left over. And our noon meal is our largest meal. And it's a big meal. I mean, we're talking about 5 courses with dessert. I mean, it's a bigger meal. Although my dad might not do that as much now because he doesn't have anybody cooking for him and he works on the farm. So things have changed a little bit that way. But in looking at tradition and how our bodies are actually designed, that evening meal is supper, which is something a little extra. It's supplemental. So it means it's just a little bit to be able to get us kind of out of the hunger cravings. A lot of times, personally, I will fast at night. So I will stop eating. I might have like a piece of fruit in here, but I will stop eating after that and won't even eat in the evenings. And I do that because that is my intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is kind of a big deal now. And our culture has it not quite right because it can affect us in a very negative way if we fast in the morning, because breakfast means break the fast. But that's a whole nother conversation that'll come up in a couple of weeks. So going back to eating your last meal around 6 o'clock. So 6:30 latest. If you eat at 5:30, 5 o'clock, that's more ideal because it gives your body time to be able to process some of that food and actually get it out of your stomach and into your intestine, which is a little more subtle behavior. So we want, because our stomach is adding all the juices and creating chemicals to be able to break down the food. And we want this to happen at an earlier time, because if it happens too late, our body's doing too much work and it's actually going to keep us up, along with some of the hormones that are released to be able to digest foods. So we want to be able to make sure that we are eating as early as possible, and then not eating again. And that being said, Ayurveda has some little tricks that we do if people have really severe sleeping problems or calming down at night, where we'll do like a milk type, meaning whatever your milk may be, to be able to calm the nervous system down. It's called golden milk. I'm sure some of us have heard of it. And it's got certain herbs and spices and stuff in it to be able to calm our nervous system down and to be able to help us sleep deeper. And there's always a old wives' tale or grandma's recipe of drinking a warm glass of milk before you go to bed. And there is something to be said about that. Not the milk we drink nowadays is a little bit more processed and doesn't have all of the fats and the nutrients that actually help calm our nervous system down. So we want to make sure we're getting the best milk possible if we're using actual dairy. If we're using other forms, making sure it doesn't have sugar in it, because sugar can actually, create more energy, and we don't want to be creating energy or throwing off our insulin levels. So we don't want that to be able to impact our sleep also. We don't want certain chemicals to be released at night. And so eating certain things to be able to help our body wind down is appropriate. Even eating foods in the evening, so our last meal, that helps to calm us down. I'll talk about that more in the foods portion later on, and when we get into more of the hygiene portion of sleep in the next round. So we're going to go through each segment, and then we'll go back through them again in more depth. And then I'm creating a whole program for 2022 that will go much more in depth in each area, and then actually have a lot more information on what you can do in more specific details. But I just want to give you an overview of the idea of what this is actually about. So we go into our evening, And then after we get done eating, we want to be doing things that wind down. So if you have your favorite TV show, fine. But we don't need to be watching TV for the rest of the night. And we don't need to be on computers and devices because that actually stimulates our nervous system. So when we were talking about our senses last week, our senses take in information. And at night, we want to start shutting those senses down so we can digest that information. And if we're seeing things right before we go to bed, it can also influence our dreams and things that are going on in our dreams. So our dreams are our time to process stress. Our nighttime is time to process stress. And I'll go back to that in a little bit, but we want to make sure we're doing things to help calm our nervous system down, not get us jacked up. So watching the news, going on a lot of social media, unless your social media is really skewed in a way that's more relaxing. So I say that because social media has changed so much from what it used to be. It used to be it was all pretty stimulating, a lot of intensity, but some of it you can get anchored more towards, calming things or meditations or something like that. So again, I'm talking about, stimulating versus calming nervous system down. So we want to make sure that we're using things that are calming things down. Along with that, we want to make sure that we're maybe doing a little bit of light exercise. And I'm talking about doing your full workouts at this time. I'm talking about doing a walk outside. So a lot of times in the evening, I will take my dog Rufus, who you just heard barking. I will take him out for a walk. And that's usually the thing we do right before, like I shower. I do my readings, my Bible study right before I go to bed. So I'm doing things to help like calm me down. I'm shutting down lights. I'm creating an atmosphere where my nervous system, because we are creatures, we are animals by nature, we want to make sure we're really engaging in that process of calming things down, slowing things down, not amping things up. But going for a walk at night connects us with nature in the nighttime to be able to, again, release the melatonin for better sleep. As we progress into the evening, starting to get off of devices. So this is where you can always record any of the TV shows that you watch. So if you record them and then maybe watch them the next night, then the night of, that may be helpful, especially if they're later at night or they go into the later nights. We want to be able to shut off devices about 9:30, depending upon when you go to bed. So you go to bed at 10, about an hour before you go to bed. Ideally, you want to go to bed at 10 p.m. So 10 p.m. is ideal, 10:30 at the latest, because we want to be able to get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. 8 hours of sleep is ideal. Depending on constitutions, we have the Vata, Pitta, Kapha constitutions, which you see right here. That can depend a little bit on sleep. And usually it's the Kaphas that want more sleep. So if you're really like sleeper and you want to sleep in, that kind of thing, that's more of a Kapha behavior. Actually, you need the least to want to sleep, which is kind of ironic. I always think that that's funny. But anyway, we want to make sure that we're going to bed around 10 o'clock, 10:30 at the latest. And then at night, what our body does is it digests everything that we've taken in, whether it be food, whether it be things through our eyes, things through our ears, our senses. So everything that we've taken in gets processed at night. And this is why sleep is so important. So this is the digestion part of the night. Just like last week, I talked about this is the digestion part of the day. This is the digestion part of the night. So that means we are processing and digesting everything. We're bringing nutrients deeper into our body. We're taking the stress of the day and we're digesting and taking it apart without the emotional part to it. So the best part is we're processing this mostly on a subconscious level to be able to not have to deal with it the next day, in hopes that we don't have to deal with it the next day. And so our body takes that time to be able to really get that information and dilute it to the point where it's like, is this real or not? So this is where processing our stress, our perceived stress, can be really useful. So stress that we perceive versus actually happening, and our body will break it down. Our mind will break it down at that time. It's also a time when our body detoxes. So at that midnight time, so between 10 and 2 p.m., our body gets rid of toxins. And this is key because it doesn't happen during any other time. So this is a key time for our body to get rid of toxins and rebalance our insulin levels. And so if we don't sleep until midnight or 1 o'clock, then we're missing out on a huge detoxification process, especially the toxins in our brain. So our brain actually shrinks a little tiny bit. And then the synovial fluid, the lymphatic system, flushes out our entire brain and cleans it. So it cleans it to the best of its ability with the time that we give it. The more time we have, the better our brain gets cleaned. So if we sleep on our left side is ideal, according to Ayurveda, because again, it helps to flush even more so. So being mindful of how much sleep you get is really, really important. And the timing is important also. We are not nocturnal animals. We need sleep at night. And we can probably feel that with the changing of seasons. When our summers are much longer, I find that I have problems sleeping because the sun's up so late and it takes a little time to wind down, where this time of year, it's like, wow, I don't feel so bad going to bed at 10 or 9:30, or, I start to feel my body wind down even now and get kind of tired. So listen to those signals, because your body is releasing the right hormones to be able to go to sleep. And in the next lecture, I'll talk more about melatonin and the importance of that and how that plays a part, and how Western medicine is starting to look at it a little bit differently than before. We thought it was definitely a hormone, and now we're starting to see that it has a lot of hormone-like behaviors, but might not be a true hormone. It has different behaviors and is not just for sleep. It pretty much regulates everything in our body, which is significant. So again, we want to make sure that we're winding down, and then our body is detoxifying at a cellular level, including our brain. And this is new research. So it hasn't been all that long that Western medicine has known that there is a lymphatic system, it's called the lymphatics, in our brain, and it draws out toxins. And the lymphatics, if they're clogged up, if they're not releasing, can turn into diseases later on. So we want to make sure that happens, or just cognitive fog and brain fog. How many of us wake up with brain fog in the morning? I mean, that's definitely an issue right now. And with all the extra stuff and all the extra stimulation and, all of the environmental toxins, it's just more toxins that our body has to take out of our body. So we want to make sure that we are getting enough sleep to be able to let that detoxification process happen at a cellular level. Going into the night, and then we have some of us that wake up at that 2 o'clock. So 1:30 to 2:33-ish, that's a key time when our body goes into this transition from this deeper sleep into kind of a little bit lighter sleep. And we can hit that shift where our body wants to wake up. And some of us have to go to the bathroom. And a lot of times it's because we're drinking wine or we drink coffee too late. Coffee has about a 7-hour half-life to it, which is pretty significant. If you drink your last coffee here, you count 7 hours later, that's pushing a little close, half-life. That's not even full life, and that's not even gone, depleted completely. So coffee does have a huge effect on our sleep. And you may say, oh, caffeine doesn't affect you. It's probably because you're addicted. If you don't get a little bit like amped up drinking coffee, you are addicted to caffeine, or caffeine in general. I shouldn't even just say coffee, because some people are Mountain Dew drinkers or soda drinkers, which is even worse than coffee, because coffee at least is a real bean, I guess you could call it an herb of some kind, because it would be a medicine if we were using it for some things in the process of stimulating the body. We'll leave it at that. So, and then going through the night, waking up into the morning. So we want to make sure that we're waking up before 6 a.m. Some of my teachers that I've studied with that live in northern climates versus the ones that live in the southern climates, it is a little bit different because us northerners, especially those of us that have lived here for generations or lived here most of our life, we've acclimated to this winter, which is very different than in the winter in the South. So our days are much shorter. It is okay to sleep a little bit more, meaning one of my teachers lives in Colorado, and he says, 6:30, 7, depending on your constitution. And as long as you can get up and get going fairly quickly, meaning you can get up, do your meditation, exercise in the morning, then sleeping in isn't so bad. But if you're sleeping in all the time past that, then it's not quite dialed in. And that's just something that we work on with our clients, or I work on with my clients to be able to get them balanced out. And it takes time. It's not easy to jump from an 8 o'clock wake up time to a 6 o'clock wake up time, especially this time of year. But getting up and exercising definitely helps, or getting up and moving, whether you do some sun salutations or you go out for a walk. I know the sun doesn't get up till like 7 o'clock now, and was it daylight savings time next weekend? So that means it's going to be getting up even later. Throws me off a little bit. I like the light mornings. Everybody else likes the lighter nights, but I like the lighter mornings. But I get it. If you work in a job where it's dark when you go to work and it's dark when you leave work, I wouldn't like that either. Okay, so just to kind of redo it, try to eat before 6 p.m. Try to eat foods that actually help your body release melatonin or help to calm your nervous system down. So foods that are easy to digest, but have a little more weight to them. So soups and stews and stuff like that are lovely, especially this time of year. We're all starting to say, oh, it's getting to be soup season. And those of us in the northern climates are definitely like, oh, soup, it's that time of year. So I totally get it. Chili, that kind of thing. Although chili has spice in it, so it can actually stimulate a little bit. Give or take a little bit, depending on how spicy you like it. Winding down, getting to bed about 10:30 p.m., going through and sleeping all the way through the night. There are some things that you can do to be able to sleep through the night, especially if you struggle sleeping through the night. There are some practices you can do, and I will talk about that more in a couple weeks. But just start practicing. So these things that I give you are just little ideas of where you can start, or give you an idea of, okay, this is what I'm doing, and this is probably what I need to move towards better health. And there is a big difference between getting enough sleep and not getting enough sleep. And it isn't something you can catch up. So many people think, oh, I'll just catch up on the weekend. Well, that throws your sleep cycle off significantly. And it takes a few days for your body to recalibrate and then start over again. And when you do that, it really throws things off, because you'll spend Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, a little groggy. And then by Thursday and Friday, you feel pretty good. You're like, oh, I feel pretty good because I'm back on my sleep schedule. So what you're doing is you're giving yourself what's called jet lag. And we know this from flying somewhere, and we'll experience this during daylight savings time also, is this kind of jet lag feeling of throwing our circadian clock off. Our body likes consistency. It likes consistency because it needs to release the right hormones at the right time. If our body doesn't know when and has to guess when to release these hormones, it either won't do it or will do it at the wrong times. So keeping your schedule as consistent as possible, unless you're sick or ill. So that throws a little bit of a side wing in there, but that's where a practitioner can help. But also can help, people that are just trying to reschedule things and have a lot of excuses. So I've worked with a lot of people that have had a lot of excuses, including myself, of why I should be able to do just the opposite of what nature tells us to do. So these are a few ideas to be able to get started. And in a few weeks, we'll talk about a lot more. So have a great evening. Thank you.